Okay, well,
To
off.
summarize, Jim says he doesn't like horror movies. He especially doesn't like horror comedies, and this one didn't even live up to the level of a '60s Scooby Doo cartoon. That
Got
was
it.
it.
That's a good
That's pretty good.
summation
Yeah.
of.
Thank
See,
you,
I
Okay,
Jim.
That was
was,
better
I was,
than I could do,
Thank
now
Jim.
you, Jim,
I was
via
take
John.
take it away, Chris.
All right, so I will. My counterpoint is, so I remember, like I think I did. So as I mentioned to you guys before we started rolling, that I did see this opening weekend. I remember being very excited about it at the time that it came out. Once I heard, this is the kind of movie that back in the '80s you'd have to read like Starlog or Fangoria or Cinefantastique to find out that they were working on this thing, and then like at that point I was still like completely obsessed with the big names in the effects industry. So when I see Richard Edlund's name attached to this, this is a movie he did coming off of Ghostbusters. And so I'm like super pumped. And I would throw this and put this in the pile of the golden age of '80s goopy monster movies. I mean, it's got bad acting, it's got bad music, it's shot in a backlot, it's kind of pervy, but damn, like
Oh,
as
I got
and I'm
gotta.
watching it, like all these things are still true, but fucking
Except the music, dude. The
the
music
music.
in this
Okay,
is
what I
amazing.
will say is what this motherfucker
Oh, and Chris Sarandon is the shit.
every single scene that he is in,
Prince
he is
Humperdinck.
fully
So
committed.
good.
Humperdinck, yeah.
He is
Yep.
pretty fucking good in this movie, even if everybody around him is kind of terrible.
Uh-huh.
He's
I
so
would say him
good.
and Roddy McDowell, and then you get to the end and it's like you're watching all this practical effects stuff and all these things that are shot in reverse, the melting guys like shot in, like all this stuff's like shot in reverse, and the post stuff is kind of not that good, but the makeup effects, I mean, like this was pretty for its day.
Yeah.
This was really really cool effect.
Uh-huh.
We've gotten so used to, I mean, movies. If this movie, I didn't see the 2011 remake, but if this movie was to be made in 2021, it would be 100% digital.
Uh-huh.
This would look a lot more realistic. I probably like it a little less. I know
Exactly.
they got Colin Farrell to do the vampire role. In the
Yeah, they had a
2011
good cast. Anton Yelchin played the main.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I saw it in the theater, and it's exactly what you're describing. They took it 100% serious,
Yeah,
all CG,
Uh-huh.
and it just had no life. It had no.
Has no soul.
It
I
had
don't
no
know
soul.
that this movie is good, but it's still kind of fun, even if
Well,
like
it's fun. Yeah. It's
fun. I mean, it's
yeah.
it's a Scooby. Yes, it's kind of a bad Scooby Doo episode, but I think that Roddy McDowell and Chris Sarandon bringing, like, I don't even know if Chris Sarandon is even that great of an actor, but he's really good in this.
Mhm.
And he didn't do a whole lot. I mean, I don't remember
Well,
like
Princess
Well,
Bride.
that's one of the problems, Chris, is that Roddy McDowell is like in a different universe from
Almost. They pull him in halfway through the film, and it's like he's walking in from a different movie in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that white makeup in his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah.
I
It was
like.
the worst.
It's so bad.
Oh, look, it's
It's like
they
high
put
school,
Bob Wilkins
I've seen
in a
high school
movie.
plays with better old man
They
makeup.
want
Well,
to get,
every
they
time I
want to
see
get-
it, I feel like if you touch it, it's going to come off on you. It's going to
Yes,
like,
yes.
yeah,
It's like
like
a resident,
it's gonna
right?
go.
It's like, oh, I got
Yeah, a big
But
cloud of
that's why-
dust.
He's basically playing Bob Wilkins, and for
Yeah.
those who Bob
Or
Wilkins, like,
I thought also, of course, Vincent Price.
Well,
Well,
he's based on
that's
Vincent
his-
Price.
Yeah, his name is
They
Peter
wanted to get
Vincent. Vincent
Vincent
Price.
Price is too
Yeah.
old at this point to do it, so they got Ryan
Yeah.
McDowell. In fact, part of his
Right,
name is Peter.
Vincent
It's Peter
and,
Vincent. So it's
Peter Vincent.
Peter
Yep.
Cushing,
Peter Cushing.
And Vincent Price.
Yes.
Peter
Yeah.
Vincent. Yeah,
So
and that's
anyway,
how that works.
I don't think it's a good movie, but just like last week when I went on and on about Phantom of the Paradise, like I got a little bit of sentimental attachment to it, even if it still kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to withdraw one of my objections. I actually really liked American Werewolf in
I was
London,
going to say,
which
to me,
is
that's the
a
best
comedy.
example of horror comedy.
You know, weird thing
Yeah.
is, I actually, when I saw it in the theater when it came out, it bothered me. That was kind of really uneven and icky.
Mhm.
This one, at least, has a more consistent feel to it. It's just
See,
like
I'm with Scott.
yeah. This
I
is
think
like,
in American
like
Werewolf in London, they sometimes didn't know what movie they were making.
yeah, they
This
don't
knows
know-
exactly what it is.
This is about a teenage boy, and he's got the hots for his girl, and this vampire moves in next door. I mean,
Oh,
you,
look,
I,
27.
you could be in the room with the pitch when they pitched it, right? Imagine a teenage boy, the vampire moves next door. It's like, oh, I got a movie, kind of thing, right? But this is, so it has an amazing amount of energy. It's got the pacing's quite good in this film.
Yeah, it moves along.
Yeah, there's some ickiness. There's a thing with Amanda Bierce's character about like, being rather chaste in the beginning and like being seduced by the vampire at the end, which I guess, but that's like maybe
But that's like
Dracula
that's
thing.
like normal stuff. Vampires
normal Dracula
always
movie
seduce.
Yeah.
So
So
I love
there's
that
no.
this scene where it's like you establish in the prior scene you're going to be fine because the vampire has to be invited into your house,
right,
And then
boom,
he's
been
there,
invited into the house.
Yeah.
like indefinitely invited.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
There are the screenplay.
Who saw that coming?
I mean, there was no surprises there. You're right.
The screenplay's pretty good, actually, all things considered for a shitty movie. Like, well, again, at the time this came out, I think this was considered A-list studio. Like, the studio did not just like they put some muscle into budget, marketing, wide opening. I don't remember how it did.
Midline film.
I mean, just looking at the number of makeup effects in it, obviously they spent some money on this thing.
Yeah.
At least in the last half hour.
And the sets are quite good.
The sets are good. The exteriors are like that's Laird International Studios in Culver City.
It's a freaking
and everything outside is Culver City.
I did love the wolf getting it.
Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to feel sorry.
Oh yeah, you know what? That was genuinely disturbing, Jim. I thought that was maybe the creepiest part of the whole movie. Is that
I know people can watch a Holocaust and they're okay with it, but like if you hurt an animal, even obviously a fake animal, it's like the end of the world.
Wasn't even.
Well, it wasn't. It was more what was happening to the kid who had turned into the wolf. Which was upsetting to me because of sort of this gradual transformation back to it as he was dying.
During this scene, he's like howling and weeping and kind of yelling, and you see Roddy
fucking
McDowell with tears running down his face.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's really something.
Yeah.
It's a strange scene.
Speaking of tonally inconsistent, I think somehow that is set apart from everything else in the movie. There's a good jump scare in the alley, which Sheila and I both were like, God damn it, because he comes behind.
A good jump scare, man.
But I
that, of all the monster scenes, was to me like the creepiest and most disturbing.
think I agree. I agree. There's that one moment that is like you're actually having the whole time. I think this is supposed to be a fun ride, and then that one scene is like, oh my God, I actually am feeling something. This is like really, really sad.
Which kind of makes it more egregious that they never tie up the loose end of when did his mom come home and find blood all over the house. Every room,
but it's
like the
sort of like
this is one of those films where the kids trash everything in the movie,
and there's no
but it's like there's not a lot of monster movies. I would think, at least not, maybe because the tone shift is so great in this for just that scene. But there's not a ton of movies that I can think of off the top of my head that make you feel bad for the people that this is happening to. You kind of The Fly is a great, of course, because he's your protagonist and he's got a relationship and etc. But
Greek tragedy,
right? Like, but here you're like, oh, you're just having fun, and then you're like, oh no, that's a real boy. That's like a real kid who's like got a life and like he's now gonna die.
I didn't like his character in the movie. I just thought he was weird and awkward.
Yeah, he's weird. He's that
he
friend that you guys all had.
It goes evil
dark. It gets dark though. It's like, what does he say to him? It's like when he transforms, he's like, no one will ever be able to make fun of you. Maybe he'll be able to pick on you again. It was like, wow, man! All of a sudden,
but he was a sympathetic character. He was like, I know people like him when I was growing up. Real sarcastic, real kind of wise ass, but they also get their asses kicked all the time.
This was my best friend in high school.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's the thing. It's like he actually, and weirdly, at the end of the film, he actually, all right, you're so cool, Brewster. He's like, yeah, okay, moved in next door. Way to go, man. That's.
And great. We're set up for a scene. Happen.
Yeah, exactly. But so like I said,
there were like this was the summer of
Can I Chris? 1985, right?
Oh please, this is
a Day of the Dead, Reanimator, Fright Night, Return of the Living Dead, Ghoulies, The Stuff, Cat's Eye, Nightmare on Elm Street, Life Force, House, Friday the 13th Part 5. You could get there. This year was packed with horror films. They're coming out like once or twice a month.
I was like a pig and shit. I was so
I know. It's
I'll
like
just
I saw every single one of those in the theater.
I know. It's like it was
Yeah,
way
did
too
you
much
say-
to choose from back then.
Day of the Dead was also that year, right?
Day of the Dead, which I just watched, but I'll get that later. But
Yeah.
all right.
So for me, this thing was kind of, it started off as a bad 80s high school teen comedy, right? And it really is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the further along it gets, the more Chris Sarandon there is, and the more makeup effects there are. It's like it just gets progressively better at the mark, I think.
Yeah. Well, it
It's
digs in a bit, that
pretty rough going. The whole first half is just, a teen comedy. And why does every 80s nightclub scene?
That's just how it was back then. It's just
It was like it was a
reminded me of
yeah,
Terminator.
it had to have a
Yeah,
nightclub.
me too. I thought of Terminator.
Yeah.
What was that club called? Tech Nine.
Noir.
Yeah.
Tech Noir.
Yeah, but this is like, I guess that's right.
Which
that
there
part,
is a band decided to call
yeah.
themselves that after
but
that.
that's the part that
movie.
reminded me most of Buckaroo Banzai because it had that kind of that nightclub look to it and the soft lighting. I was like, oh yeah, this is part of a trend back
Yes.
then. The low key kind of look to it, and I thought it was good. It's just they all have them, right? Some good mirror reveals in this too.
That one's quite long in that there's like a sequence of songs that underscore the mood of each section. That
Right.
There's at least 2 songs, I think maybe 3, but also there's a theme that keeps repeating and it's that da 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 da, and that's
The orchestral theme.
I mean,
from Fright Night or whatever.
if you guys have any idea what I'll say at the end after you guys are done, a friend of mine bought me the vinyl soundtrack to this movie from Japan.
Wow.
You had to because you can't get it. So she ordered it from Japan. I have it on vinyl, this whole soundtrack.
Damn.
On the 4K version of this movie,
Nice.
there's a score only track.
Oh wow.
People like this. I am not one of those people.
Right. What I was going
I
to say.
didn't know that. That's cool.
I forgot something else I wanted to say was it was really fun for me since I'd never seen it to kind of stumble upon another big practical makeup movie from the 80s, which was the heyday. We already mentioned American Werewolf is the obvious comparison. The Thing. I mean, that's when they were making these kind of movies where holy shit, stuff happened and it was all latex and goo, right?
Yeah. Which is like the crown of that. This is just before Terminator 2.
So much goo.
Digital effects out. This is like
T2.
It's gonna get with the.
That was 6 years. 6 years later, man.
Yeah. Wasn't that 88 or 89?
Well,
it was like 90.
It was like
The
90.
2 was like 91 or 92.
Coming up. They were working on it at that point.
I think the Abyss was actually the
Abyss
first
was 88.
digital. The Abyss was probably the first digital effects, but
88.
SGI.
Yeah.
and then right after that was T2 with the Terminator 1000 guy.
Yeah. But either way, like I said, I thought it was effective. I remember seeing it as a kid. Like it's played the Del Mar on one of the 4 screens there. It was pretty.
Kid, whoa! You and I were like
good.
20, dude.
Yeah, I know. I worked there. Come on. I saw it for free. I was like, it's all right. It's scary, but I've seen scarier kind of thing. I don't know if my opinions changed that much. I think that I like the fact how tight it is. I like it's all done in an hour and a half. Boom.
Yeah.
It's a tight script, I think.
It's a tight script.
It really is.
It's wrapped in cheese.
It is.
Mhm. But on purpose.
Yeah, it's got some nice, interesting characters. I love the fact that the vampire guy is always eating an apple. You notice that?
Always
What do you do
fruit.
with that?
I don't know.
I saw some comment, I think on IMDb that was like something to the effect of he must have been a fruit bat. But
Fruit
pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, that goes against conventional wisdom about vampires, which is that the only thing they can eat is blood.
yes,
Yeah.
and he's always chewing on an apple or a plum
Always
or
eating
something.
an apple.
Yeah,
It's kind of they're throwing it in your face.
Exactly.
He does a thing though, like the first time Charlie Brewster points the cross at him, like up until that point, it's like you guys don't believe this shit. But then at some point, Brewster shows him the cross, and Sarandon does this weird like.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's
It's like, oh shit, man! Now that you've been infected. Now you've got cheese too.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
There's a point before Roddy McDowell's character believes
Yeah.
that he hits somebody with the cross and it works.
right. Yeah.
And the kid.
It's inconsistent. I mean, if you want to talk about like the rules of vampirism or the rules of something supernatural, they kind of play fast and loose in this movie.
Yeah. Well, either Roddy McDowell's character was a believer, and so the cross worked, but the kid, Brewster, didn't, and it gained faith through the film at the end.
Right.
That's why at the end the cross worked, which
Right.
is I think I'm trying to
That
establish that
makes
it was a
sense.
little uneven though. You're right.
Yeah.
It wasn't
But they-
quite as
well,
strong.
They didn't quite land that point.
You're
but-
bringing up some good stuff to talk about.
The thing is, like, if you're like going through life and you saw an honest to God fucking vampire, you'd immediately become a believer. You would. It's like it would. No more.
Well, because you're like, if this exists, then God has to be real too, man.
It's like you're done. You're like, okay, you're just gonna join a monastery after that because you're done. But they don't. So here we are. All right.
Yeah. I was always a Roddy McDowall fan as a kid. It was like any movie that had Roddy McDowall in it, I thought was probably a good movie. And I didn't think he was very good in this. It's like he's just not a very good actor, or was he phoning it in, or
Maybe he's a better monkey.
Hold on, we saw Poseidon Adventure like what, a year ago, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, maybe.
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, like he's an actor that was on Hollywood Squares for a reason. I mean,
okay.
I just think there's a certain type that.
Yeah, he's doing. I mean, he's doing Vincent Price. He's doing. That's what he's doing here.
Maybe
It's
he's a better monkey.
book.
Maybe he's better with the makeup on and doing more.
I don't know if he
better
ever
as Cornelius.
did anything I don't know if he did anything like seriously, like serious.
Well,
Like
he's
I
a kid.
don't know
It's
if
like
Planet
Green
Apes
Was My
was
Valley or
anything-
something like that, right?
Well,
Yeah.
What's
We
that?
see-
what's her
few things
name
on the
in
show.
Black Beauty or whatever it was called.
Oh, right.
Taylor.
Didn't he show up as a kid in like How Green Was My Valley or something like that?
He's
Yeah, as I
in
said,
How Green
yes,
Is
he
My
was a
Valley,
kid,
which we saw,
Which we've seen
right?
here, John, because he picked it.
The-
But I don't know, like, was he ever taken seriously as an actor? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Like, I know him from shit like this and from being
Right.
on Little Float and Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
Right, and he was kind of like well known as being an actor you'd find in a crummy movie.
Or
Yeah.
sci-fi or horror film. Yeah.
Which-
pretty much.
Which, if he leaned into it 5% more, because I mean, like, he's basically like this version of him in this movie is a guy who made his career being in shitty vampire movies.
Mhm.
And now he like that could have.
Well, he hosts. He's Vincent Price. He's Elvira. That's who
Yeah.
he is.
The TV show is all about his
done something with
crummy
that, but I
movies.
don't think the movie was interested.
He's Creature Features. He's
Right.
the host of
You're
Creature
right.
Features.
Yeah.
Right, they could have done more with that sort of.
Not even Bob Wilkins. He was John Adams.
Yeah,
he was-
exactly.
John
Stanley Adams.
Stanley.
John
Stanley.
Stanley. Oh, that's so
John Stanley,
sad.
John Stanley.
The John Stanley era. Oh,
I still get letters from him because I bought a book from him like
Oh Jesus!
20
yeah.
years ago.
Oh yeah,
And they're all like handwritten.
I think Frank used to get stuff from Bob Wilkins. I mean, like those guys were like, oh my god, I have fans.
yeah, pretty much. So,
I
Jared,
have a letter
might as
from
well-
Bob Wilkins somewhere.
Might as well take us home, Jared.
So, excuse my voice. I've had a cold, but I don't think this movie is supposed to be taken seriously at all. I think that I never discovered. I mean, when this movie came out, I was I don't know, 7 or something.
Right.
So I had I'd never heard of this movie. I knew nothing about it. And I grew up, the first vampire movie I think I ever saw was The Lost Boys, and my older brother snuck me into the theater. Right.
Mhm.
And I love The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is near and dear to my heart. Such a different film. That has a lot of humor, but is taking itself very seriously. Whereas here you've got sort of the opposite, and this has become my favorite vampire movie because of the camp, because of the cheese factor, because of all of the silliness. Yet it's still got this vibrancy to it. It's still got this life. It's pulsing with fun, and it's got. It also, you were talking about as the faith gets stronger, the cross, like. I used to sort of judge vampire movies on how much lore they can fit into the entire film in terms of like coming at it from different angles. And this movie, like Chris said, I think this is a very tight script. They fit a lot of all of the lore in, and they unfold it on you sort of in real time in a very kind of fun way. I think this movie is extremely sexy too. I think Chris Sarandon is the sexy, like, this is a cult film at this point is what it is. Like, I had no idea when I saw this. I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that this was kind of like an A-list movie. I thought this has got to be B material right out of the gate is what I felt. So I saw it in retrospect, obviously as an adult, and I just couldn't believe how much fun I had and how stupid it was, but in the funnest way. Like I was like, everything, they're nailing everything, like the lighting, the sets, it's all so cheese. It's also like,
This is on Tad's not good, really enjoyed it spectrum.
Kind
You
of
know?
like
Like,
yeah, like, well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
that's
bad.
kind of where I'm at.
but
Bad,
I think
good.
it's actually incredibly good. Like for
Yeah.
all of these reasons, I
Well,
actually think it's a quality
that-
film.
that's why
I-
you enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, you know, weird
Yeah.
thing is this goes into a kind of a weird. It fits into a strange genre, like a fun horror films. Like there's this and there's Lost Boys,
there's
all the same era.
Lost
And, you
Boys
know,
is very fun too. There's a
and,
lot of fun horror movies.
Return of the Living
The-
Dead is a very funny movie. If it came
I
out
like
same
but
year.
this, like, of course, this is all shot on a lot. You can tell. I mean, it's
Oh,
so like the Lost
So
Boys.
much.
Oh,
The
you said that
Lost
little, that
Boys.
little curve there. Well, it's shot in
The Lost
Santa
Boys
Cruz,
is
man.
shot in, a real world. It's
Yeah.
very gritty. Different lenses. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's got.
No one has
you know,
ever called Santa Cruz gritty, but keep going.
Well, no. I mean, I'm not talking about
The
Santa Cruz. I'm
same.
talking about the way it's shot, the way
I
it's
know, I know.
filmed.
Uh-huh.
Schumacher.
Also, this is scope. They're both scope films. Interesting, like with using that wide film, that wide.
Yeah, but this is you can.
Plus
I
there's
mean,
that
you can
weird alley.
outside of every frame, you can see like the five guys with the big lights and the wheels on
Oh,
them,
yeah,
and they can
no,
just
this is
move
a
them
real
over to
production.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And on the Lost Boys, it's probably not like that. Not all the time anyway. And yeah, I just think that like this has become one of those movies. I think that's sort of like aged. It's gotten better with age in terms of like the camp factor here is the volume just keeps going up on it the older it gets. I feel like, and of the volume of camp.
You
And
wouldn't
people
have noticed
going,
the
wow,
80s you wouldn't have noticed the 80s music and the 80s nightclub scene and stuff because in the 80s it would have just been
it just drowned out or just blended in. Yeah, I you guys know because you were there. I think that's so great.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, if this made an impression on you when it came out, I would have been surprised.
Yeah.
But like now, you watch it. I watched it in the 2000s for the first time, and I was like, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, where has this been?
Hey, they used
Like,
to knock
it's
this
so
shit out. Like I said,
funny.
you get something like
And-
this every other week back in the day, back in the 80s.
I
Yeah.
felt like I was seeing a goopy horror movie
Yeah,
every other.
this was
But I feel like this one has charm, and like Chris said, a tight script.
That is absolutely true. Tom Holland knows how to do that
Like
kind of thing.
you could tell everyone here cares.
Yeah,
Everyone here involved cares about this movie. They care about this project. At least that's what I feel. The script is very tight, and I just have a ton of fun. And I love the music because 80s music does often, just kind of melt into other 80s song. I mean, it can be very, homogenized, but I feel like this sort of is distinctive in a weird, also kind of bad but good way. Like the music is bad good. Like
it's kind of like the 80s versus the
you know,
70s. There's a music in general going from synth, from like the metal thing or the rock thing. It's like
yeah.
80s music for movies is very distinctive.
And it was cool that they actually had a theme that would repeat.
everybody had the same keyboards, everybody had the same drum machines and keyboards.
No,
Yeah.
the studio has fired the orchestras and just had that one guy with a keyboard.
Yeah. But I love everything about it. If I had to nitpick, the big end fight in the basement is my least favorite part. I like the goopy effects, but I want to be in this world. I want to live in this little movie, Like,
One thing, real estate
think it's
seems
so
pretty
fun.
affordable in this universe because like this vacant house next door to you for years and years. It's like a nice
Right?
place, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like stupid things like, where does the vampire live or where is his lair? That cut to just the fucking fog and he's like, oh yes, I see. Like he's like, it's just like it's just like stupid shit like that where you're like, I mean, you just look at that set and it's so great. It's just so perfect.
I know you summed it up. I want to go back to one thing. The gay coding in this film is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, for its time,
Sure.
that's pretty remarkable.
Well, and both
Chris Sarandon had a boyfriend, basically.
Yeah, his familiar.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Chris
people
Sarandon is bi.
Ganymede.
Yeah,
Chris Sarandon is bisexual. The
Uh-huh.
other guy is gay lover.
yeah,
And then he
it's
gets
like-
the women on the side and he
wasn't
there's-
treated with disrespect
years
either. He was actually
later-
kind of like he was
Oh,
like
yeah.
he was actually an effective character in this film until the
Oh,
point.
I
of
like the familiar character. He's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Amanda Beers she gave off some weird vibes in this one too.
she's
Well, it's really
so good in
giving
this.
Her all is
They
She came out not long after Married with Children.
Yeah.
Pretty
Uh-huh.
vocally
they make
about
her
it.
at the end of this though, she is so sexy
Yeah,
as
she
like
is.
the
Oh, yeah.
vampire
Great-
woman.
That's a great
And in the
cast.
beginning, like I still like my friend and I quote this movie all the time, but one of the funniest things I've ever seen in any movie is it's the opening where they're making out, the TV is on with his favorite program, the Fright Night program, and he's kind of pressuring her like teenage boys do. But she says no, and he says okay, and then she says, well, she starts to change her mind, right? That she's going to have sex with him for the first time. But it's that when she takes off her shirt and she puts it back over her, and she says, Charlie, I'm ready, and it's like the way she, but it's
that's pretty good.
It's my favorite moment because she's so not ready. She's not ready. And and just that word choice and her performance there, the subtext is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
My favorite scene in this film, which came out after when Charlie's Brewster's looking across and spying on the vampires, and they do a track across his floor, and you see empty Coke cans and stroke mags.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck. Yeah, he's a teenager. You get it?
He's a teenager. He's a teenager. And they've been going together for a year. And all I hear is Charlie, stop.
No, it's a 27-year-old.
There you go.
That's the thing. Everybody in this movie looks like they're at least 30.
I know.
Yeah.
Advanced age here. All right. Well, I guess it's thumbs time.
I'm kind of here.
Too huge.
I thought I was going to pull a hard one here, but Jared convinced me that it is a bad movie. So yeah.
Oh wow! He went reverse.
Denied.
I guess it happens.
I enjoyed it.